All right, what is up, everybody? We decided to go live here, and I know nobody's going to be watching because this was just an impromptu live. So if we get some people to pop up here as we are going live, we'll just kind of see what happens. Why not? Just have some fun, go live. It's just me. So if you're hoping to see Chris on this thing, I am so sorry, but it's just me. I mean, you never know. He might see it and pop in here or something like that. You just never know what's going to happen. But I want to accomplish a few different things with this feed. First, I want to talk about a couple of different visits that we've had. I want to talk about a couple of different positional rankings, the best player, the Detroit Lions, in my opinion, who they brought in at each position. So we're just going to kind of talk about that. And then we are going to end this with kind of having some fun and just doing a mock draft. And if there's a few of you watching by then, I absolutely want to see your comments in here as we start the mock draft. I want you to be telling me who you want with the next pick, if we should trade it, all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna have some fun with that. But before we get into all that kind of stuff, first I want to talk about some of the positions that we may be looking at or may have a need for. And I think one of the best ways that we can do that is to actually get a look at who we've brought in for visits. This hasn't been an end all be all for us in the past. It really hasn't. But what this has been in the past is just kind of an idea of what we're looking toward. Now, there's a couple players who are like, I had no idea the Lions were even looking at me. And then we ended up drafting them. So that's a really good thing. So in this, the first thing we're going to do is look at what players we brought in for top 30 visits. And then we're going to look at a couple of the different actual, how do I want to say it? Positions and who I think the best player is that they could have brought in. So here's our top 30 visits. I just did a video on Manu, Giovanni Manu. We brought in Cody Schrader. Lions love Missouri Tigers. Why not? Roman Wilson got brought in also for the local pro day, so he's been all over the place. At edge, we've brought in Marshawn Nealon and Nate Lynn. At defensive tackle, 3 of them. Michael Hall, Christian Boyd out of Northern Iowa, very interesting name there, and Jerzon Newton. That Jerzon Newton would be a possible first-round pick for us, so we can talk about that. But cornerback has dominated this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 corners that we have brought in, all the way from Terrion Arnold, the number 1 or 2 corner on the board, all the way back to Kalen Carson / Nehemiah Pritchett, to Mikey Sainristil, still, Andrew Phillips. So anybody that could be a early first round pick, like mid first round pick, all the way to a possible 3rd or 4th round pick. That's crazy. Here you see the local day. Guys like Blake Corum get brought in because why not? Carson Barnhart, I want to talk about that. That's intriguing to me. And then your other meetings, that's where we had the wide receivers. Anthony Gold, Devontae Walker, Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Legette. Actually want to talk about Legette in a little bit here. But then a bunch more edge rushers, tons of edge rushers. So the writing's on the wall when you look at our visits. It's cornerback, it's edge, and it's wide receiver. Those are the positions that we're looking at the most. So here's what I want to do here. I want to go ahead and I want to look at players available at that position. And what we're going to have some fun doing here is we're just simply going to talk about who's the best player at each one. And then when we're all done, said and done with this in 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it might be, then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we are going to do a mock draft together. So hang in there with me because I want to hear you. Devin has already said Kool-Aid at 29. That's what he wants. All right. He even said he'd be happy moving up if they had to get Kool-Aid. Do whatever they had to do. He's a fan of Kool-Aid, and that's big. All right. So let's do this. Detroit Lions. First position that I want to look at here based on who they had in for visits and who I like the most in the class, we are going to look at cornerback. All right, so cornerback, Brad Holmes is on record as saying the cornerback class is normal. In other words, he's saying it is exactly kind of what he thought it would be. Totally normal. This is what corners could look like. I think some of us have viewed this as a weaker class, maybe not. When you look at this group of players, maybe they don't have the initial star power, or maybe that's just because Quinyon Mitchell is out of Toledo. So we don't feel like it has the star power, but it does. Like, there are a lot of really good players here. When you look at Quinyon Mitchell, Terrion Arnold, Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins, Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think that is the first set. All right. So I think Mitchell and Arnold probably in a state of their own. And then you go DeJean, Wiggins, McKinstry in that next grouping. Then after that, it's pick your poison. What do you like? All right. Do you like Rakestraw or Sainra still? All right. Do you like an outside corner who is a tackling guy, or an inside projected nickel corner who also can do a little bit of everything? By the way, when you see these guys, Sainra still spent a lot of time on the inside, but that doesn't mean that that's where he is going to be. Now, if you're wondering who did we have in for the visit, the answer is all of them. In our top 30 visits, so they came into our facilities, we had Kool-Aid McKinstry, all right, who's 27 on the big board. We had Stiggers out of the CDFL, all right, Quintez Stiggers. We had Terrion Arnold, who's 14 on the big board. We have Andrew Phillips, all right, out of Kentucky, who's 86. We had Enos Rakestraw, who's 39. You got Kalen Carson, who's not even on this one. Okay, you got Nehemiah Pritchett, who's, believe it or not on this one. And Mikey Sainra still. We've had all of them in for a visit. You can add a couple more on the local day, and then you can add Quinyon Mitchell, all right, who is the top-rated corner by pretty much everybody who's there. So here's my question. What do you want to do? Would you like to trade up for a corner and go after a Quinyon Mitchell or a Terrion Arnold and give up probably that first round pick and maybe even a first round pick next year? Or could you trade up and give up a second round pick this year and a first round pick next year? These are the kind of questions that you have to ask yourself. Or are you happy staying and hoping that Kool-Aid McKinstry or Nate Wiggins or Cooper DeJean, one of those guys, fall to you? Are you happy taking a Mike Sainra still? Are you happy taking that? Remember, the Detroit Lions have picks 29, 61, and 73. 29, 61, and 73. They have a lot of ammunition. So are you happy waiting and maybe getting a Chris Abrams drain? Are you happy with an Andrew Phillips or a Max Milton that might be around? I don't think TJ Tampa is still going to be around. I think his measurables are just too good. So when I look at this, if I'm going the cornerback route, if you're waiting, all right, if you're waiting, you have to be okay with having one of these caliber type guys. I think if you go corner, you go after it, but it's just so hard. 29 is, it feels like, unless you think Wiggins or McKinstry is your guy, it almost feels like this dead area where it's almost impossible to pick them at 29. So I could see us trading up or even trading back and just taking a shot at a couple of different players. That is the one area that Brad Holmes has yet to draft a stud. I mean, he truthfully hasn't really tried, right? So you can't fault him for that. But this is the one area that the Lions have continued to struggle. Do you think Davis is the answer for man-to-man as a man-to-man coverage corner? Do you think he's the answer, Carlton Davis? Do you think Amick Robertson is the answer? If not, you may want to do something. Here's the problem when you look at this board. Cooper DeJean, don't know where he's at with coverage skills. Man-to-man. Didn't do it a lot. Wasn't asked to do it a lot at Iowa. Just wasn't asked to do it a lot. So you're not sure what he is, but you know he can do absolutely everything else. Absolutely everything else. Nate Wiggins. All right. You know he has all the tools to be an elite cover corner. Has all the tools in the world. But at 173 pounds, can he come up and play the run well? has not shown a willingness to do it, as you can see by 29 tackles. Kool-Aid McKinstry, if you ask me, like, he's a better Enos Rakestraw Jr. I see him come up. He's willing to make tackles. He can be a good defender. If my money's there and there's all things even, Kool-Aid's my guy. Kool-Aid is my guy. All right. And so that's just kind of where I'm at. You look at his RAS and he didn't run or anything like that. So you're just hoping he's fast. But we've talked, and Brad Holmes has come out and said it, and Dan Campbell has come out and said it. And they've talked about consistently about how they don't care as much about the 40 speed or anything like that. They're all about laser speed. They're about how fast is the guy on the field? How fast is the guy in cleats? And that's what you want to see. If you want to trade out of the first round, Mike Sainer still is a great add. TJ Tampa, if he's still sitting there when you have your second round pick, I don't think he'll get there, but absolutely go for it. The guy's stacked. He's shown the ability to do quite a few things. Just hasn't maybe necessarily put everything together at this moment. So that's where I'm sitting with the corner. I don't know, where are you guys at though? Is corner still a position that you want to see us go for? Is it or isn't it? And those are the questions that I have. How happy would you be if, all right, like Devin wanted, I'll show his same comment back again. All right. Would you be happy if Roger Goodell went up to the podium? Are you going, by the way? And if you're not going to the draft, you better be watching it with us, right? But would you be happy if Roger Goodell comes up to the podium and says, with the 29th pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the Detroit Lions select Kool-Aid McKinstry? How would you be feeling about that? You know, we love Alabama players. You know, we love Iowa players. And you know, we like Michigan players. So it'd just be kind of interesting to see what they would say for that. And here's Johnny. I agree with you. This is a big year for Brad Holmes. It's a big year for Brad Holmes. Everyone has been, but I do agree, because this is a different one where he has to make a lot happen with later picks. Okay. So I see this one too. Best lineman available at 29. So we're going to do this here. We're going to kind of switch gears. Let's talk about the best defensive lineman available to us. And in order to do that, we are going to spend some time on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. So let's start originally with the defensive side of the ball. So I'll let you guys get a look at who this is. And as you're looking at this, I will tell you who we have brought in on visits, because that's kind of the point of this whole thing. I want to talk about people that we brought in on a visit. All right. So the two people that we brought in on the 30, all right, that were defensive line or defensive edges were Marshawn Nealand. You see him down there at 53. Okay. And Nate Lynn out of William and Mary. Another William and Mary. Are you kidding me? That's weird. On the defensive tackle side of things, we went on both sides of it. We did Christian Boyd and Michael Hall. All right. So that was very interesting, because those are like guys you might take a little bit later down. That's fine. But then we also brought in Jerzon Newton. And depending on who you're talking to, he is the number 2 defensive tackle in this class behind Byron Murphy. All right. If you go into, there's nothing of huge, like players, other than our local visits. Somehow local visit was Darius Robinson of Missouri. So that's an edge defender. Jalen Harrell out of Michigan. That's a later round pick. And then at the combine, we met with Marshawn Nealand. So we met with him twice. We met with Darius Robinson. So we met with him twice. We met with Braylon Trice out of Washington. All right. So there was a lot of those types of players. And we also got the other defensive tackle out of Illinois, Johnny Newton. Okay. So when we look at this defensively, what do you want to do with this on defensive edge? I look at this and you can do one of two things. You can hope that Latu falls to you, but he won't. He won't. So do you trade up for a guy like Latu and say, you know what? We're one player away. And if we can put an elite pass rusher, across from Hutchinson, that's all we need. All right. That's all we need. Or, all right, Joseph, I hear you. We're going to talk about this. All right. Or do you wait and say, hey, I got a guy that I think could be just as good, Chop Robinson. Let's see what he has to bring. And I think this is where the idea of what Brad Holmes does just sticks. And it's, I'm going to get the best player available. So whoever he believes is the best player available, that is who he will take. But when I look at this, and remember, I was saying the Detroit Lions have picked 29, they have picked 61, and they have picked 73. When I look at this pass rushing class, I think the difference between what you would get at 29, which is Jerzon Newton, but especially at the edge, Darius Robinson, right? You might reach for Fisk or Jenkins, but if you wait, I'm telling you, one of these guys is going to be available. The Chris Jenkins, the Marshawn Nealons, the Michael Hall Jr., all right, big boy in the middle, all right? Rook or Horoho, or Hora, all right? Like Braylon Trice, good player, right? Little undersized. Tavondre Sweat. I just feel like the difference in defensive linemen, there's some depth there where it's like, all right, there might be somebody available. Mason Smith has been getting a lot of talk lately just because of his size, speed, athleticism combo. So those are the kind of things I'm looking at. I don't mind it. All right. So here's what Joseph is saying. He's saying trade up for Verse or Mitchell, trade back otherwise. Didn't realize I had that up there still. Hopefully you could see all the names I was looking at. I get that, but I get that. So Verse is your guy. I personally like Latu. All right. I like Latu, but we also have to look at who did the Lions talk to. And one thing that I think is very interesting, is they did not meet with what I would call any premier type edge rushers, which tells me maybe they like where they're at. All they've met with is edge rushers down here. Now, did they meet with a premier defensive tackle? Yeah, they met with Jerzon Newton. They did. And man, oh man, would he be fun to have in there. Man, would he be fun to have in there. I think that would be a fantastic get and depth piece. And how nice is it that we're talking, whether we're talking corner, whether we're talking defensive linemen. All right, we're going to talk offensive linemen here in just a second. And then after that, we're going to go to wide receiver. But how nice is it that we're talking, whenever we're talking a first round pick, and for almost every one of these first round picks, we're saying, okay, this is a depth piece year one. That's where you want to be as an organization. That is what Brad Holmes has done. That is what he has done. All right. Detroit fan man said, I would just take Newton at 29, let Aleem have a dominant contract year next to Reader and become a cap casualty with his replacement already here and get a comp pick after his release. Oh man, what brutal. I like it, but brutal, man. Like, that's nasty. I mean, good for you. Instead of paying Aleem McNeil $20 million a year, you have Jerzon Newton here. And that is what you have to do, people. Like, that is part of what you have to do. I'm not saying do it. I'm not saying do it, but I am saying, like, those are the kind of things you can get away with. All right. Those are the kind of things you can get away with. All right. I told you we'd talk about offensive linemen on the side too. First, let's stick with the interior side of the ball. All right. Troy Fontenot. I think that's a really interesting one. And I think it's interesting that they consider him interior offensive line. Graham Barton is a very good player. Jackson Powers Johnson has, like, there is nobody I like in this class more than Jackson Powers Johnson. The idea that he could come in, he could be a depth piece for us this year, because there's no way that the trio that we have on the inside of, Ziegler and Ragnow and whoa, why am I blanking on my Michigan boy, right? Like, there's no way that trio, Graham Glasgow, is going to stay healthy together for 17 games. You will need another good player. And I think Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson, Zach Frazier, Cooper Beebe, Christian Haynes. All of those guys are good players that can become very good interior offensive linemen. And again, with the Lions holding pick 61 and 73, I think interior offensive line, I get it. If you can get Jackson Powers Johnson, if he falls to you by some miracle, you take him. That is your center of the future that plays guard until then. Don't even worry about it. All right. Or he's a great guard of the future. It doesn't even matter. Graham Barton would be the same thing for you. And I think Zach Frazier could be as well. And I like what BB does. So you could wait and have Christian Haynes, Cooper Beebe at that pick that is in that 61 range. All right. Here's another one. Zach Zinter, later round. Zinter got hurt at U of M, right? Tore his ACL in the playoff. Like, he's not even going to be available this year. So you can get him in a much later round, but he's a guy that probably would have been sitting in the same range with BB, Haynes, Frazier. Like, he probably would have been a top 100 pick if he had not gotten hurt. So let's get these interior ones out of here and let's talk about the offensive tackles. Okay. First off, let's just get out of our mind that some of these guys are going to be here. And I don't see us trading up for an offensive tackle. It'd be really weird to trade up for someone you're not going to use this year. All right. So these top guys, even JC Latham, I don't think they're going to be there. All right. Erasmus Mims and Graham Barton. We already talked about Barton. Mims could fall. He could absolutely fall. I'm not a big Taylor Guyton fan. I'm not a huge Taylor Guyton fan. I am, however, a big Jordan Morgan fan. I think Jordan Morgan is a guy who you could play at guard next year, and then move out to tackle if the contract doesn't work out with Decker. I think Kingsley here, the cousin of Penei Sewell, sign me up. Like, I'm good with it. Like, the guy's a monster. All right. He is an absolute monster. And it would be nice to see a pick on an offensive tackle taken kind of early on here, or just another high quality offensive lineman. Brad Holmes was talking just recently in a press conference about how he absolutely believes that the offensive line is key to good quarterback play. And he didn't say just Jared Goff. He didn't say just your what's the word I want to use with it? He isn't talking about just Jared Goff and how Jared Goff is a non-mobile quarterback. He's saying if you're mobile, if you're not mobile, if you're a scrambler, it doesn't matter. You need a good offensive line. Expect him to continue to pour into it. The question is when. The offensive tackle market is very deep in this draft. But when I say deep, I mean the interior, not the offensive line. It's a deep offensive line draft, but like 2 to 3 rounds. Don't get too cute with it. You need to draft an offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds almost every single year. That's just the way it works. And then you need to get lucky on a couple other ones. But offensive tackles and offensive linemen are absolutely important. Okay, now let us talk about the position. Let us talk about the position that everybody is the most intrigued by. At least I am the most intrigued by, and that is wide receiver. This wide receiver class is so good, it's almost not fair. And to completely miss out on this class because our wide receiver room is pretty much set just seems like highway robbery. All right. It seems like highway robbery. So all of us are always looking at these great players, and you can see right here the amount of wide receivers that fall in the top 100 is just insanity. All right. It's just insanity how many there are. Like, this is similar to the Amon-Ra St. Brown wide receiver draft class, where it's really, really good. All right. If you feel like our trenches are set, I have no problem with using a pick on a wide receiver. But we have to look at, again, who did we bring in? Who did we talk to? So in our top 30 visits, we visited with Roman Wilson. And by the way, Brad Holmes has even said, like, he's not afraid to go get a slot wide receiver. Like, he's not afraid to get a slot wide receiver. You can have multiple of those guys. Roman Wilson can play on the outside. St. Brown can play on the outside. Just because they're phenomenal in the slot doesn't mean they can't play in other places. I always say Roman Wilson is like St. Brown light. He's faster. He's not quite as physical. But he is a player that in this offense could do some serious damage. We also had visits at the combine, formal visits with Xavier Legette, Brian Thomas Jr., Devontae Walker, and Anthony Gould. Okay, I want to talk about a few of these guys. I think that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be gone by the time we pick. Now, here's the interesting thing. All right. And this, I saw this on Twitter. And by the way, if you don't follow us yet on Twitter, follow us. I call it Twitter. I hate calling it X because it's impossible to say I'm on X or something like that without sounding like I do drugs. Okay. So I like to call it Twitter. And X is a dumb name, but that's just me. Maybe I'm just old and I don't like change. So it was very interesting. Xavier Legette came out and just flat out said, if the Panthers, if he's still available, the Panthers are picking him at 33 with the very first pick of the second round. He said it. My question is, does this put any pressure on people, aka the Lions, to draft him in the first round? Or, hold on for this, does it give the Lions an opportunity to be a trade back partner with other teams? Maybe even the Panthers, right? So, like a lot of teams that might want to pop ahead to get not Xavier Worthy, but to get Xavier Legette. Maybe. I mean, that could be really helpful for us. This guy is an absolute stud linebacker, 6'1", 221 pounds. He's a running back that plays wide receiver. And I think he could end up being an absolute monster in the NFL, similar to Deebo Samuel. All right, his contested catch rate is through the roof. He's physical. His yards after catch are unbelievable. I would have no problem with taking him with pick 29. All right, now, I also would say if Adonai Mitchell, oh my goodness, if he falls to us. Now, he's had an interesting career, but when you look at the intangibles, when you look at what he is, he has all the makings of a ridiculous wide receiver. And I think if you put him with the right quarterback in the right system, he can be unbelievable. I would honestly say I love Brian Thomas Jr. and he's rising up draft boards. He had a really good offense and he had Jaden Daniels throwing to him. All right. Adonai Mitchell, I'm telling you right now, if put in the right situation, could have a better NFL career than Brian Thomas. All right. There is a ton of talent right here. So if the Lions want to go offensive lineman or defensive lineman and then want to package a couple picks to come back up and get another wide receiver, go for it. But what if they wait till that 61? What if they wait till that, 61? Sorry, my watch was talking to me there for a second. If we wait until that like 61 or 73rd pick, there's all these guys available. All right, Jermaine Burton. All right, we're going to have a good info on if his struggles were because of him or situation or what. You're going to have Devontae Walker that might be available. Jalen Polk. Like there's a lot of good wide receivers that will still be available that could be complementary outside wide receivers that I think would be really, really helpful. But what would you like? Would you be happy if the Lions went Mitchell with the 29th pick? Would you be happy if they went Ladd McConkey? Would you be happy if they went Jamison Williams 2.0 and Xavier Worthy? All right, Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearsall, Keon Coleman, like these just stud wide receivers. Would you be happy with that, or do you want to wait? Would you be happy if they traded up to get like a Brian Thomas Jr.? I wouldn't like that because I think there's too many good wide receivers available. Still will be available when we pick at 29. It's just a loaded class, and most of them are late first round, second round wide receivers. They're all right there. And so I would love to see what we do and who we're able to pick up. There's just good wide receivers all over the place. So here's what I want to do. And this is when I need the comments thread to start getting a little bit more spicy than it has been. All right, so I told you, and you see the title of this video is Detroit Lions Final Community Mock Draft. Like this would be perfect timing for Chris to just pop on. Just, he's going to film. Oh, Craig's live in the studio. I'm going to pop in there. No, that's not what's going to happen. So the final Detroit Lions Community Mock Draft. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to have to share my screen with y'all, and that's fine. I can do that. All right. And we're going to just take our time as we go through this. I think I did a full 7-rounder, which is just ridiculous. So let's start the draft. But the question is there anybody you want to trade up for? Is there anyone that you want to trade up for? I was all aboard the trade up train. I would have been perfectly fine with moving into the mid first round by giving up our 29th pick and a second rounder. I was fine with that. But then we gave up one of those third rounders for Carlton Davis. And so our own, by the way. So I am no longer in I'm no longer in that boat. I'm no longer in that boat. All right. And Joseph, we'll keep this in mind. Cornelius Johnson, special teams guy, killer blocker, thinking a late flyer on the Michigan man. And by the way, I think that in many ways, he's shown more skills than even Donovan Peoples-Jones did in college, just for what it's worth. So let's start this draft. I'm not going to trade up. We'll look at trade back scenarios if we have any offers. I have no problem with that. So the draft's kind of going as we think it's going to go. And I'm just excited to see if anybody falls to us. So there goes Chop. There goes Adonai Mitchell, right? So a lot of this is just how does it fall to you? And when we were talking about players that we liked, we were down to 3 players that I was just like, these are great players. All right. Jerzon Newton, Kool-Aid McKinstry, all right, and Jackson Powers Johnson. So you tell me, who do you want? Load the comments. All right. Those are the 3. We're going to look at the trade while we look at those 3. Newton, McKinstry, and Powers Johnson. Who do you want in this community mock? Because quite honestly, if those are the 3 players that are available to me, I don't know what I would choose. I mean, that is some really, really good stuff. All right. So, so the only thing that we got possibly here is with the Atlanta Falcons, where we could trade out of 29 and get probably 43 and 74. I don't like that just because, man, I like what we've got. All right. I like what we got. So that makes me very happy. All right. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to, yeah, there's nothing here. So, so here's what we're getting. All right. We got Kool-Aid of those. Newton would be a steal. Newton or Powers Johnson. All right. So it looks like early returns in the community mock are Jerzon Newton. So let's take a look at this guy. Let's see who he is. And you guys keep hitting those, keep hitting it. All right. Don't worry. We're going to take more time on the first 3 picks. Then we're going to get quick on the later ones. All right. This is a guy who can just be an absolute stud. He can be an absolute stud. And I think when we look at him, you have to realize like the grades match up. There was some injury stuff last year, but he is a defensive tackle that can stop the run, all right, at a pretty decent rate. But what he also does that's so impressive is that he gets a pass rush from the defensive tackle position. He gets a good pass rush from the defensive tackle position. So I think the people have spoken, and it turns out that you Lions fans like to build in the trenches, which I am all for. So community mock draft pick 1 with the 29th pick, Jerzon Newton. And I can get behind that. No problem. All right. No problem. Gives us a little built-in insurance with Aleem McNeil. Also allows you, if you want, I think Jerzon Newton has the skill even to set the edge and be a big man on the edge. Like that's just crazy to me. Crazy to me. All right. So while we were gone, let's just take a look and kind of see what we're looking at here. I'm not sure how they do the trades here, so we're just going to do a straight draft, which is fine. I've done it before, so it's weird. Maybe I'm just, struggling with this. So here's what we're talking about with the 61st pick. All right, let's go interior offensive line. You still have Christian Hayes available. All right, he's still there. Cooper Beebe is available. All right, these are 2 guys that you could go. I'm not going to take Beebe though. So it's Christian Hayes. All right, if you go to the wide receiver room, you've got Ricky Pearsall. All right, good player. Malachi Corley, Jermaine Burton, Devontae Walker. All right. Do you guys like any of those guys? All right. I personally don't think Pearsall will drop to 61, but if he does, I would be shocked if we did not take him. This guy is Ladd McConkey. He's Ladd McConkey with worse quarterback play. All right. When he was able to be on the field consistently last year, only 87 targets, but 65 catches. All right. He played really, really well. His receiving grade's good. His contested catch rate's just fine. All right. His grade versus man coverage is good. He can be a good player. He's 6'1", 192 pounds, but man, oh man. The problem is, can he play on the outside? Can he play on the outside? Whereas a couple of guys, Jermaine Burton, all right, he can. All right. He has elite quickness. All right. He can play flanker. He can play slot. The problem is, what's going on with him? Right. He played 2 seasons at Georgia before transferring to Bama, where he was a 2-year starter. He is a highly competitive wide receiver. He's not afraid of any matchup, will talk trash consistently. Is he a guy who loves ball, or does he love talking trash? And those are the kind of questions that I want the Lions to be able to figure out. All right. And then you have Devontae Walker. I'm not going Walker yet because I think we could get him with the next pick. So Pearsall, you go Braswell, edge. Is that something you want? I personally think you get your guard of the future with Christian Haynes, but I don't know. All right. I hear a lot of stuff. All right. Oh, we got a QB or cornerback question. All right. Who do we got at corner? All right. This is where you get Andrew Phillips. I am underwhelmed by that man. I'm not saying he couldn't be good, but he kind of falls in the same mold that we've struggled with in the past, which are corners that just aren't fast. And like, we need to have corners that can stick with these fast guys. Like, that's just kind of the way that I'm seeing it. All right. I think Abrams Drain will be around longer. I'm fine with waiting for him. I'm absolutely fine with waiting for him. So I think in this one, I think I go Christian Haynes. I go interior offensive line. I've seen O-line by a couple here. BB might still be available, but also here's what we got to do, everybody. We got to go Marshawn Nealon, because we had him in multiple visits. He's the edge rusher that is got good size, so he can do that. All right, he can do that. And I think with pick 73, we can still get Cooper Beebe on the offensive line, but Marshawn Nealon won't be available. So we're going to continue to build through the trenches. We went defensive line. Now we're going to go edge, and now we have the best defensive line in the football in National Football League. All right, and let's just see if Haynes almost made it to us. He got picked one before us. The Jets. What are you doing, New York? Get out of here. All right, so interior O-line, Cooper Beebe is still available. Like I said, I thought he would be. I have no problem going O-line here. At some point, we have to get our guard of the future. Here's the thing that's nice about Beebe. He started at guard. He started at left tackle as a freshman or sophomore, whatever he was at the time, right? And then last 2 years, he played almost completely at guard, but he's also played right tackle. So this is a guy who can come in here. If you need him to play tackle in a pinch, he can, but he also is a guard. And you can always move Graham Glasgow. You can shift him over to center. You know he knows how to do it. He doesn't love doing it, but he knows how to do it. So BB is the guy that I really like in this situation. And I think a lot of you are mad at me that I didn't go O-line. On the last pick, Steve said O-line, yeah, for the last pick, and I didn't do it. So now he's telling me BB for sure. So I totally get that. All right. So let's draft BB. And I can't get these comments to mess around. So anyways, that might be stuck there. All right, Steve, you're going to have a lot of good airtime there because the computer is not working. There it goes. There it goes. All right. So now we are in what seems to happen every year with the Detroit Lions. We have this long. All right. Thank you, Rodney. I'm with you. All right. Everybody is saying BB. So we now have this thing where we have found guys that is just going to fill the trenches and continue to make our offensive defensive line good for the next 10 years. Like, that's huge. Linemen are so valuable. They're so valuable. And we already have a stud wide receiver. We already have a stud running back. We already have studs in certain positions. And now, oh man, wow. Do you double up on O-line? Like, we don't pick again till 201, but here we got Zach Zinner. All right. Zach Zinter. He won't be able to play this year. All right. But you could go there. All right. When you look at some of the other players that are available, you look at Edge, Braden McGregor. I don't hate that. There's a couple players that I really like that I'm going to see if they're around. Steel Chambers, like, look, I'm a Michigan fan, but what a great name. Can I just say that right now? Nehemiah Pritchett is a corner that we've had in a couple of times, and I think we like him. And I think one of the reasons that we like him, I look at certain stats more than others. So his PFF grade's a 71. That's not bad, right? And his run defense grade isn't bad, but we've had him in a couple of times for visits. So that means that we're at least considering this. But when you look at this guy, I look at this stat right here, passer rating allowed. So this past year, while being targeted only 26 times, in other words, people know, don't mess with this guy. He allowed a passer rating of only 58.8. 58.8. And he is fast. Oh, is he fast? He's 6'1", 184 pounds. He's not huge, but he's big enough. He's got the length and he's got the speed. All right. He's got the length and he has the speed. All right. While I'm talking to you right now, I'm going to pull up his RAS score. All right. All right. I'm going to pull this up. Sorry for 1 second, please. All right. He was a 9.25. He ran a 4.36. All right. You're just going to have to listen to my numbers here. He ran a 4.36 40. All right. He has decent height, decent size. All right. 9.25. 168th cornerback out of 2,222 ever tested. He is a very talented corner. He's not a guy who's going to come in and start right away at corner, but I think he is by far the most talented player left on the board, at least based on pure athleticism. So let's go Pritchett here. Somebody also said Haddon. Why do you like Haddon? That's a great question. All right. Kamal Haddon. What's so great about him, Steve? And then if you want, I will absolutely look at wide receiver because this is the last pick. Because here's the thing. If you don't know about wide receivers, at this point, when you talk in round 5, round 6, they're pretty much busts. So we're going to get out of this thing and we're not going to have a wide receiver. And that's going to be my greatest. That's going to be my greatest regret because Cornelius Johnson is already off the board. I thought he would still be available with this one. He was not. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. All right. But Nehemiah Pritchett is. And I think there's a world in which we trade up here if we want to go get the person we want. And so we're going to go corner. We're going to get hopefully a guy that can become a lockdown corner in the future. I'm kind of surprised, to be honest, that he was still there. I mean, kind of surprised he was still there. All right. So let's see what else we have. There's also still free agent wide receivers available. If we want to go out and get someone, we can talk about that in a minute. Okay. So now we're sitting here with very interesting players. All right. And I'm not entirely huge on a lot of them, but when I look at this, this is the type of guy that I feel he's a Michigan man. We know the Lions like Michigan players. He used to play at Indiana. Now he's at Michigan. He's still only 21, but he's 6'6", 251. All right. He is a very good blocking tight end. He is a very good blocking tight end. All right. So I'm also seeing somebody say Trey Taylor. All right. I think I already went past him. Trey Taylor is a safety out of Air Force. All right. Has just been a solid player. His run defense grade is good. His coverage grade is good. I think with Kirby Joseph and some of the numbers that you've seen on him, that might not be bad. All right. Um, is he fast enough? I don't know, but he's big. He's big and he's old. All right. I'm going to say he won't be around, but I'm going to say we go AJ Barner and then see if he's still around for the next one. So we get that backup tight end position locked up, and there you go, Trey Taylor. It's a Joseph. We lucked out. All right, there you go. All right, there's your guy, Trey Taylor with 205, and then we wait till 249, and we just see what happens. Now again, you're trying to find special teams guys here. Both of those guys could be special teams players. Trey Taylor for sure. All right, kind of like perfectly made to be a special teams player. So I absolutely like that one. I like that one there. So we're going to just go ahead. We're going to take a look at it. And we are finally here at 249. And you know who I'm taking. All right. If we don't get the kicker from the Michigan Panthers, all right, that dude is solid. He is unbelievable. That's who I want. But if we have yet to get him, we go for Will. All right. Reichard out of Alabama, wearing his glasses, looking like a nerd, and kicking the ball like a mad dog. All right. Let's see what we got. All right. The one, it said that we should have drafted Michael Penix Jr. instead of Marshawn Nealon. Obviously, it doesn't know what's going on, but if that's the only swap, then I feel pretty good about it. We had an overall draft grade of a B. All right. We're in the top 68% of Detroit Lions drafts. I certainly hope so. I like the trenches like crazy. It's not boring. You guys are awesome. Yeah, I don't even think I saw Stigger's name on there. I see this. If Stiggers doesn't get drafted, I'm telling you right now, he's coming to us as a UDFA, and let's go for it. All right. Everybody watching now, not a big crowd, shouldn't be because I didn't announce that we were going live. So anyways, we are going live for the draft. Round one of the draft. It'll be year 3 in a row. I don't know if I'll be at Chris's house. I don't know if he'll be at my house. I don't know if we'll be at separate houses. All right. We might be at our own homes for this one, but maybe I'll get some pizza, order it in. All right. But hey, here's the deal. Join us. We want to be your go-to spot for the draft, making fun of other teams' picks, talking about good other teams' picks, and just having fun with the community. Every year it's a blast, just talking over the stream, talking through the comments. Just love doing this stuff with all of you. So if you haven't already made plans for the draft, if you're not going downtown to Detroit, watch it with us. We'd love to have you. All right. Thanks so much for watching this, and we will see you Thursday night. Have a good one.